In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
And welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicky Fraser, this is Whiskey Fraser, and this is Joe.
Hello.
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 This podcast is brought to you by a purring cat and gin and tonic.
Hurrah.
Hurrah for gin and tonic.
Back on the gin.
Back on the gin. Chin chin.
Chin chin.
And also we should thank my Uncle David.
Hi, David.
Hi, Uncle David. Uncle David sent us a bottle of gin for Christmas with the instructions not to be drunk before a podcast.
Too late.
Quite clearly we are disobeying that order. But thank you very much, because that was very lovely.
If any other of our dear listeners would like to send us, booze for trying out during the podcasting, that would be great.
We certainly won't turn it down. Yeah. Anyway, Joe's back from the frozen north this week. I am back from trapeze, minus some skin.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's been a while since I've been to trapeze, and it's so good to be back again.
New bruises.
New bruises and new raw patches on my ankles.
Nice.
Yep, it's all good. So this week, I was going to be interviewing somebody, but that clearly hasn't happened.
Oh.
I'm interviewing 2 people tomorrow for my podcast, though.
Are you?
Yeah, to be put out in the next couple of months.
Oh, crikey, we'll have 2 in the bank.
I have 2 in the bank.
Nice.
Shall we tease them now?
Mm.
Okay, so tomorrow morning I'm talking to my very first mentor, Peter Thompson.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. So that's going to be great. We're going to be talking to him about how he made millions, then lost millions, and then made millions again.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that's very exciting. And he's also interviewing me as well for something else.
Oh.
So that's quite cool.
Okay.
And then in the evening, I am talking to Kim Kraus-Schwalm, who is A-list copywriter extraordinaire over in the States.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim. And I've been doing a little bit of work with her the last month or so, and she's just amazing. I'm a little bit of a Kim fangirl.
Cool.
So that's really exciting. It's kind of a big deal for me. So that's really exciting. But this week
you just got me.
Oh, no, I haven't just got you. That's awesome.
You got me in gin.
I've got you in gin and whiskey. Not whiskey the drink, whiskey the cat.
She's purring on your knee.
She's purring on my knee.
Cool.
So this week, last week we talked about habits. Did we talk about habits? No, last week we talked about...
Last week I was in the frozen north.
And we talked about the Chelsea Principle.
Yes.
But the week before that we talked about habits, and that's my awkward segue into this week.
That was smooth.
Mm. Well, this month my Inner Circle members, my Small Business Superheroes members, have got their chronicle, which is probably one of the most useful that I'll have written for them. And it's all about habits and how your brain works and stuff.
Okay.
And I did a teleclass for them on procrastination and stuff like that. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, which is procrastination. And the title of this podcast is The Procrastination Station, because it made me laugh. Chuckled to myself internally.
Okay. Laughing at your own jokes.
Well, somebody's got to.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody else is.
So, really, I want to explain to our dear listeners why they can't get started.
Okay.
Because it's an eternal problem. And let's start with the story, shall we?
Yes, let's.
Are we sitting comfortably?
I am sitting comfortably, and
do you
I
have your gin?
Yes, I do.
Good. Then let's begin. So, all the way back in 1830, in the summer of 1830, Victor Hugo was in a panic.
Okay.
Tell the listeners who Victor Hugo was.
Readers tell the listeners what?
Tell the listeners who Victor Hugo was.
Well, he's the writer of The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yes. Joe only knows that because he's just read it off my notes. I'm hoping that there are some people out there who know that Victor Hugo wrote.
Yeah, he was a huge author. Huge author.
He was. He was famous even at this time in 1830.
Mm-hmm.
Before he'd written The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
What else did he write, though?
All sorts of things. Shut up. 12 months earlier, in the summer of 1829, he had agreed with his publisher that he would write a new book called The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And he was already famous at the time, and his publisher was really keen to get his next book out, as publishers tend to be. And I would imagine that his publisher had probably given him an advance.
Yes. That's kind of how it works.
That's kind of how it works. But Victor Hugo didn't write. Instead, he did what I can only describe as faffing around. And basically, what he did was, he worked on a few other projects. He had loads of house guests, and he had loads of parties, and he went out, and he had a grand old time.
Spending his advance.
And he did naff all to write The Hunchback of Notre Dame. What do you think his publisher's reaction was?
Was the publisher not entirely delighted?
The publisher was distinctly unimpressed, as you can imagine, and he responded to Victor Hugo's dedicated and professional procrastination by setting him quite a scary deadline. And Hugo was to finish his book by February 1831, which was less than 6 months away.
6 months away. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, faced with this kind of, rather threatening deadline, Victor Hugo made a plan. Because he'd been completely unable to write.
Did he create one of those revision charts with lots of colours that was really, really complicated and took weeks of his time to create?
I suspect he probably did that before his publisher gave him this new scary deadline. Because because do you remember when you were at school though, and you would do that? It would be like a revision
Spend more
plan.
time writing a revision plan than actually revising.
Yeah. And I have theories about fucking school exams. They're a waste of time for most sensible purposes. They are. Total waste of time for most sensible purposes. Kids only... Anyway, that's a completely different... I'm not saying school's a waste of time, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't assess kids, but getting them to cram for exams is utterly... It's a waste of everybody's time. They don't learn things. They just retain a small amount of information.
Enough to pass.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Victor.
Back to Victor Hugo. So he made a plan that didn't involve coloured marker pens and charts. He made a plan that involved collecting all of his clothes, like all of them, removing them from his room, and then he had them locked away. And all he had left to wear was a great big blanket.
Right.
Big scratchy blanket. And because he had nothing suitable to wear, he couldn't go out and he couldn't have fun. So he wasn't tempted. He couldn't even go out and buy any new clothes.
Because he just had a scratchy old blanket.
And bear in mind that in the 1800s and, in that time, and he would have been part of high society, and for him to go out in a scratchy blanket would have been like ridicule.
Mm.
It would have been like you going out with a mullet or something.
Okay.
So he basically wasn't tempted. He gave himself no option but to stay in and write. Essentially, I think he also arranged to have his groceries done. He would have had a housekeeper and a cook and everything anyway, because he was well-to-do in those days. So he didn't have to go out for anything, and that was his only option. And it worked. He stayed in his study each day, and he wrote during the 1830s, during 1830 and the very beginning of 1831. And he published The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 weeks early, on January the 14th, 1831.
Okay.
So procrastination is not a new problem, is the point I want to make. It's kind of a human trait, really.
It is an established thing. So why do people procrastinate? What's that about?
Well, I will explain.
Further down the list.
No, it's coming next. I did just want to point out though, but it's an even older problem than even Victor Hugo, because right back it's so ancient that the Greek philosophers Aristotle and Socrates invented a new word to describe it, and that's akrasia.
I think you'll find that Socrates.
Socrates, right? Akrasia, anyway.
Akrasia.
Yeah, Akrasia, and it means the state of acting against your better judgment.
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah. And that's like thousands of years ago. And it basically means when you do one thing, even though you should be doing something else, even when you're beating yourself up for not doing that something else, it's like a lack of self-control, I guess, and we all suffer from it.
Okay.
I suffer from it very badly, don't I?
Yeah, I do to some extent as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
Tell us about a recent procrastination adventure.
Well, it's. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. It's my difficult to deal with pile of my filing system. There's things I can do. Mm-hmm. Things I can delegate, and the difficult to deal with stuff that piles up and turns into a big stack of things until
it grows arms and legs and beats you.
No, I just throw it all in the bin.
Yeah, but that's a legit...
that's procrastinating at its finest, I think.
No, it's not though, because that is just a sensible system for dealing with other people's bullshit. That's what you're talking about.
Oh no, some of it's stuff I really should do,
and you throw it away. That's not so much procrastination as abandonment. Does John listen to this?
No. Hi, John.
Anyway, so I mean, you asked why do we do it? That's a really good question, and we need to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to, help.
Yeah, and you do help. You help in many ways. But it's an important question to ask, because if we don't understand why we behave this way, it's difficult to stop behaving in this way. I think we need to understand why our brain sabotages.
Okay, so rather than not doing things, we could learn about why we don't do things.
Yeah, and then do them.
Maybe that'll put it off for another 10 minutes.
It's important because then you understand why it happens, and you can come up with ways to circumvent your brain's ridiculousness.
Okay.
So, one explanation for why we behave in a way that we know isn't good for us or our businesses is time inconsistency.
Right.
Would you like me to explain that further?
Time inconsistency. No, that's perfectly, that's it. Move on.
Excellent. Let's move on. Okay, so that basically means that we value immediate rewards more highly than future rewards.
Right.
Which seems obvious on the face of it, but you kind of need to think about this a little bit. You have, I found a really nice explanation for this, that you have two selves, basically. You have your present self and your future self. And I think there's probably also a past self as well. I'm now getting into the realms of Ghost of Christmas Past, Present and Future. Let's talk about the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Okay.
So, your future self will set goals for you, but only your present self can take action on it. That's what we mean by, your future self. And when you think about when you're making plans for the future, that's not really... You can't do anything.
Now.
That's not now. You can't really do anything. Your future self, the self that's going to be benefiting from your future plans, can't do anything about it now. It's only you in the moment that can take action. And that's really important to know, because your brain, when you actually have to make a decision, like now, you are in the present now, and your brain is thinking about your present self and what's going on now. It's not thinking about the future benefits.
It's like, drink the gin now because we like gin. It's not thinking, what about when your folks come around tomorrow and there's no gin? Exactly. Because you've just drunk it all because you want it.
Exactly. So the present self doesn't like long-term rewards either. That's the other problem. So, okay, so imagine...
Your present self's an idiot.
Your present self is an idiot. Your present self is like the id.
Yeah, just do it now. What do you want?
It's like the toddler. And people with poor impulse control are less successful. That has been shown in studies many, many times. And I'll talk about marshmallows in a minute. But when we make plans, like, I'm going to write a book or I'm going to learn to draw cartoons, we're basically making plans for our future self, or the person that we're going to be in the future, not our present self. And we're looking at what our lives will be like. So when I decided to start drawing cartoons and do the cartooning course, I was I'm going to be this person who draws cartoons, and it's going to be really cool. I can make everybody's birthday cards and Christmas cards, and and that's all very well. But then I have to actually learn how to draw cartoons.
Yes.
And actually, I've really enjoyed it, but it's been a struggle to do the cartooning every day.
Because you have to do the cartooning now.
I have to do the work.
You have to do it now.
Yeah.
You can. It's easy to plan it for the future, but at some point you actually have to do it now.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't just carry on going, I'm going to be a cartoonist and then not doing anything about it. And that's the problem. That's the disconnect. That's why we struggle so much with procrastination. So, we're not making a choice for our future self. We're making a choice for who we are now. And the person that we are now is a toddler that wants marshmallows immediately. And, here's an everyday example. This is a really common example. So young people are not stupid. They know that saving for retirement while they're young, in their early 20s and 30s is really important. They know that. They're not stupid people. But they won't see the benefit for decades. Because you can't even imagine, I can't even imagine myself at age 60 or 70 or 80. Can you? I can't even conceive of what my life will be like then. Because I just can't. I can't conceive it. And, it's much easier for for present me to see the value in buying new shoes than it is in saving £200 for 75-year-old me.
Sure.
You see what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I would rather have these shoes now than put 200 quid away in the bank. There's no instant pleasure in some future rewards.
Did you just say £200 shoes?
No. Let's move on.
What?
So the future rewards. The future rewards thing is a problem, because we'll go to bed feeling unmotivated about stuff. It's like you'll go to bed thinking, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning at 6:30 and I'm going to do this, that and the other. And then, and then you'll wake up in the morning and you'll be like, oh, bed's really nice and warm. And I don't want to get up. And all of that kind of motivation from last night evaporates into your pillow.
£200.
Move on.
Jesus.
But all of this stuff, all of this stuff is really, 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 really important for you to know if you procrastinate. Because once you understand why we procrastinate, you can take steps to not procrastinate. To crastinate. To
crastinate.
You can start crastinating people. So, yeah, our brains value long-term benefits when we're looking at our future lives, but they value immediate reward now.
So what do we do to not, well, to move us into a crastination phase?
So we need to come up with instant rewards, basically. Instant rewards
for doing stuff.
Yeah.
That benefits our long-term self.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's some ways that we can do that. So for me, when I go running at lunchtime, I haven't been running for a couple of weeks, and this is my shameful confession right now. You need to could podcast guys, could you put some like sad music on from our tune? Joe, I have a confession to make. I haven't been running for since Christmas. No, that's not true, actually. I haven't been running since the week after Christmas.
That's disgraceful.
I know, it is disgraceful. And I feel crap every time I don't go for a run. And this is like the not doing things against your better judgment. You can stop the music now, guys, if you've actually done the music.
Hi, Poplar guys.
Hi. But yeah, so I've kind of built in this system that means that I can go for a run. So one of the things that I do when I actually do it is, say I'm going to go for a run tomorrow lunchtime, which I'm not actually because I've got too many things on.
Right. There's too many turns now. Just stick with it.
Okay,
What's
right. So say I'm going to go for a run tomorrow lunchtime.
Yes.
What I'll do when I get up is I'll just get dressed straight into my running gear. I won't have a shower.
Right.
I'll get dressed straight into my running gear, and I will work as normal for the morning. I'll have my cup of tea and have my breakfast, blah, 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 work. And then when it comes to lunchtime, I'll just go put my running shoes on and go out for a run. Because there is too much of an obstacle, there's too much of a psychological and physical barrier for me to finish working, start my lunch break, go upstairs, get changed into my running gear, put my shoes on and go out. That's too many things that I've put in the way.
Too many steps.
But if I'm already sitting in my running gear and I haven't had a shower yet, then A, it's much easier for me to go out for a run, and B, my reward after having been for a run is to have a really nice hot shower and feel really good, and then I can have my lunch and a cup of tea. And
right.
that's like an instant reward for going running.
Okay.
So, and that might seem like a really small thing, but it's actually quite a big thing. And if your problem is a business problem, then, say to yourself, I'm just going to start this and I'm just going to work for 5 minutes, because everyone can work for 5 minutes. And then you can say to yourself, after 5 minutes, I can have a biscuit, or I can go and read a page of my book. And you won't do it after 5 minutes because you'll carry on, because once you've got started, it's getting started is the hardest thing. But if you promise yourself a reward, then actually starting it and carrying on will be a reward in itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there are things that you can do to make it easier for yourself to start.
Remove the barriers.
Remove the barriers and give yourself a little bit of a...
Create a reward for it,
yeah.
Okay.
Give yourself an incentive to do it. So, but yeah, I just wanted to also say how important this stuff is, because if we can learn to resist the pull of instant gratification, at least some of the time, if not consistently, you won't be able to do it all the time, you can start building bridges between where you are now and where you want to be, and you will be more successful. They've done studies on this. Have you heard of the marshmallow study?
Is this the one where you take a couple of children aged 3 or something, and you sit them down in a little room and you say, you can have a marshmallow now, and you put a marshmallow in front of them, and you say, I'm going to be back in 5 minutes, and if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I'll give you 5 marshmallows.
Something like that, yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, so they put one child in a room at a time, and then the experimenter comes in and says, you can have this marshmallow now. I'm going to go out for 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
Yeah. When I come back, if the marshmallow's still there, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. And the footage for this stuff is really, really funny.
Watch small children being totally conflicted.
Sitting on their hands and squirming and literally holding themselves back because, small children do that kind of thing. I think they're 4 or 5 years old. So, but the really interesting part of this study, I mean, quite a lot of the kids couldn't last that long. Quite a lot of the kids ate the marshmallow straight away.
Yeah.
A proportion of them kind of held out for quite a while, and then a smaller proportion of them
held out for the duration
and got the extra reward. But the really, really interesting part of this study comes when you start looking at what they did when they kind of changed the experiment a little bit. So the people who originally did this experiment, way back in the 60s, I think, or the 70s, they looked at, they followed the kids. They went back and revisited these kids, and the ones who had delayed the gratification were measurably more successful.
Okay.
In every aspect of how you might measure success, in their relationships and their careers, their hobbies, everything, they were more successful than the kids who couldn't delay gratification.
Okay.
So that was the first interesting thing, and that in itself is important. But the second thing, the thing that I find really fascinating, is that a bunch of people replicated these experiments, but they made a few changes. And so they, before they put the kids in the room with the marshmallows, they did a few other things with them first. So they they split the kids into two groups, and they'd say to them, okay, so here's a sticker. I'm just going to pop out. You can like, play with the sticker, do whatever. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes or so with better stickers for you, with a whole selection of them. Mm-hmm. And for half the kids, they didn't bother going back in. And for the other half of the kids, they did come back in and they gave them the stickers they promised. And they did the same thing with crayons. They gave them like 3 crayons and said, here, you can draw some pictures with this. We'll come back with a better selection in a bit. Mm-hmm. And then for half of them they did, half of them they didn't. The really interesting part of this is that all of the kids who had been lied to, basically, they didn't wait. They ate the marshmallow straight away, because why the hell would they? Because they'd been trained to believe that, adults break promises.
Oh, right. Okay, so it was sequential. So you lied to them.
It was sequential, yeah.
So you lied to them once, and then they didn't believe you.
Yeah.
And then their gratification was they just went straight for it. They just ate the marshmallow. Because
they had no reason to delay. They had no reason to believe that delaying the gratification would bring them any reward. Because
it didn't last time.
Last time.
Yeah, see.
Which explains a hell of a lot about why deprived kids struggle so much to make a success of themselves, because their early lives are full of broken promises and disappointments. So why would they ever delay any gratification for anything? Because
just grab what you got and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they have higher levels of addiction. They have higher levels of, theft, petty crime, stuff like that. Not just to feed addiction, but because, take it when you can get it.
Yeah.
When you look at it like that, you think, jeepers, I can totally, you know what I mean? You totally understand why a lot of these social problems happen. Mm-hmm. And it's such a simple thing to fix. Basically,
train your children not to delay.
But you can turn it around really quickly. So, I mean, they could change the results with the marshmallows very, very quickly by putting the kids that they disappointed, by not disappointing them. You could change it that quickly so that then they would, could train them to delay gratification. This isn't something that is fixed in you, is what I'm saying. So this is like a really, really important thing to know. I kind of got a bit serious then, but for people who think that they can't delay gratification and they've got no willpower, that's nonsense. It's an excuse. You can train yourself. You can train yourself to kind of,
Okay.
So that's it, really.
Cool.
Done, basically.
That was quick. £200 shoes. Jesus.
So, do you want to just summarise, Joe?
Oh, crikey. Thanks for that. Okay, so if you struggle with procrastination, you're not the first. Many people have done it. Everybody struggles. Way back when. Socrates struggled.
Victor
Hugo struggled. Vicky struggles. I struggle. I just throw away my struggles, to be honest.
You abandon.
So what you need to do is train yourself that you can have a reward when you've done your thing.
Yes, you can have a reward when
you can have a reward. Treat yourself.
Yeah.
Start the thing you don't want to do. Promise yourself a reward.
Yeah.
And then actually follow through. And
there is a bunch of other stuff as well that you can... I mean, one of the other reasons that people procrastinate, and one of the reasons that I procrastinate, is overwhelm as well.
The pile is so big that you just go, Jesus Christ, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's an enormous problem, especially with you guys who are listening, because you're business owners. You totally know what I'm talking about when I say...
You should be doing something useful. Instead, you're listening to this podcast.
This is useful. Oh my goodness.
What work are you avoiding right now?
Yeah, take heed of... Well, the thing is, though, I've spoken to everybody that I've spoken to with a Borrow My Brain this week, with the exception of one person, and I've spoken to, in the last week or so, I've spoken to maybe 10 of my members, 10 of my superheroes. I think with one exception, every single one of them had the same problem. and they didn't have any focus. They didn't know where to start. They didn't have enough focus. They didn't have enough clarity. They didn't know where to start. They were feeling overwhelmed. And my God, I know how that feels, because this month has been a nightmare for me. But
You've had a boatload of stuff on, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had a boatload of stuff on. It's the consequence of saying yes to too many things. But, you know, everybody that I've spoken to in the Borrow My Brain session has had this same problem. And without fail, everybody that I've spoken to, I have spent half an hour with, going through what they're doing, giving them a bit of focus, giving them a few pointers and saying, you need to start here, do this, 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 and this. Put a pin in that for a while. And, you know, that's just going through their goals and their aims. And I've
straightening out their...
Straighten them out, yeah. And, you know, without exception, every single one of them has come back and said, oh my God, I feel so much better now, and they're getting on with stuff. And some of the achievement, because I do Achievement Fridays with my guys, some of the stuff they came back with is like...
I saw a list. Who was that?
That was Morag. Hi, Morag.
Hi, Morag. Jesus,
astonishing.
Got a boatload of stuff done.
Yeah, and, you know, she was saying, oh, I didn't think I'd done enough. It's like, everything that we talked about in our session, she'd just got on with and done. So, you know, if you are in any doubt at all about the power of getting a bit of clarity and a bit of focus and being able to get stuff done.
And maybe having somebody else just say, look, this is what you need to do.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm kind of, you know, a bit hesitant to say, you know, my Borrow My Brain sessions are amazing, but they are, frankly, because sometimes what you need is somebody else to look at. And by the way, I do this with my mentors as well. I have mentors that look at my stuff. And because I can't see my own problems. Nobody can. You can't. It's really difficult to see your own problems.
You're very close to them, aren't you?
Really close to them. I had an amazing session with a coach today about a bunch of stuff that I've been struggling with. And, you know, I've now got a clear focus as to what I'm going to do. Stuff that I would have told my clients were at their business, which is ludicrous. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you're struggling with overwhelm or focus, book yourself a Borrow My Brain session with me. It will be worth many times the investment that you put in, and you will come off that call. I absolutely guarantee you will come off the call with me thinking, my God, I know exactly where to start. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how to solve this problem. And if I can't solve your problem for you, I will give you your money back, because I don't want to be taking money from people that I can't help, because I know I will be able to help you, because this is what I do. I'm really good at it. So book yourself a Borrow My Brain session with me.
Cool. Do that.
businessforsuperheroes.com/borrow my brain. You will not regret it. And on that note, next week, I will be interviewing. Yeah. I haven't decided whether next week is going to be Peter or Kim. I think it's probably going to be Peter, purely because I think it will follow on nicely from what we're doing right now.
Sweet.
So I'll be back next week. Thank you very much, Joe.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Whiskey. And if you can't be good, don't get caught. Be good. That came out wrong.
Just be good.
Bye.
Bye. Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues. Tell your friends. Send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.